Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun stood at the edge of the Naval Academy's training ground, watching the morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete. The salt air carried whispers of doubt from the assembled officers behind her. She had worked 15 years to reach this moment, climbing through ranks that seemed designed to keep people like her on the outside looking in. Admiral Harrison Mitchell strode across the yard with the confidence of a man who had never been told no. His uniform bore ribbons from 3 different conflicts, each one a testament to his tactical brilliance on the open seas. Behind him walked a procession of senior officers, their faces stern and expectant. The entire Pacific Fleet Command had gathered for what should have been a routine strategic presentation. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the projector screen. Her proposal represented months of research into modern naval warfare tactics, incorporating cutting-edge technology with time-tested strategic principles. She had studied every successful naval campaign from the past century, analyzing patterns that others had missed. The Academy's main briefing room buzzed with conversation as officers filed in. Sarah noticed the sideways glances, the subtle head shakes, the whispered comments that followed her wherever she went. Being one of the few women in naval command was challenging enough, but being the daughter of immigrants made every achievement feel like a battle won against impossible odds. Admiral Mitchell took his seat at the front row, his steel-gray eyes fixed on Sarah with unmistakable skepticism. He had built his reputation on traditional naval strategies, the kind that had served the fleet well for decades. Innovation, especially from junior officers, was something he tolerated rather than embraced. "Gentlemen," Mitchell announced, his voice carrying the authority of absolute command. "We gather today to hear from Lieutenant Commander Chun about her theories on modern fleet engagement." The way he emphasized theories made it clear he considered them little more than academic exercises. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. She had rehearsed this presentation countless times, knowing that a single stumble could derail not just her career, but her credibility within the entire naval community. The PowerPoint slides behind her displayed complex tactical formations, each one representing hours of careful calculation and strategic planning. "Admiral, distinguished officers," she began, "naval warfare has evolved beyond traditional ship-to-ship combat. Modern threats require adaptive strategies that combine technological superiority with unconventional thinking." A murmur rippled through the audience. Several officers exchanged glances that suggested they found her opening presumptuous. Sarah pressed on, outlining scenarios where smaller, more agile forces could outmaneuver larger traditional fleets through coordinated cyber warfare, drone deployment, and precision missile strikes. Admiral Mitchell's expression grew more skeptical with each slide. His fingers drummed impatiently on the table, a gesture that every officer in the room recognized as a warning sign. The Admiral was known for his direct communication style, often brutal in its honesty. "Commander Chun," Mitchell interrupted, his voice cutting through her explanation like a blade. "These computer simulations are fascinating, but warfare isn't fought on PowerPoint slides. Real naval combat requires experience, instinct, and the kind of leadership that comes from years of actual sea duty." The room fell silent. Sarah felt the weight of every gaze upon her, measuring her response. This was the moment she had dreaded and prepared for simultaneously. Mitchell's challenge wasn't just about tactics. It was about her right to be heard in this room of seasoned veterans. "With respect, Admiral," Sarah replied, her voice gaining strength. "Experience without adaptation is just repetition of past mistakes. The enemy we face tomorrow won't use yesterday's playbook." Mitchell leaned back in his chair, a thin smile playing at his lips. Interesting perspective from someone whose most challenging deployment was a training exercise in the Mediterranean. "Tell me, Commander, how does book learning compare to facing hostile fire in open waters?" The question hung in the air like a challenge thrown down at a duel. Sarah realized that this wasn't really about her tactical proposals at all. This was about proving herself worthy of consideration among officers who had earned their ranks through combat experience she had never faced. Around the room, officers watched with the intensity of spectators at a gladiatorial match. Some seemed sympathetic to Sarah's position, but most appeared to agree with Mitchell's assessment. The unspoken message was clear. Theoretical knowledge meant nothing without the crucible of real combat experience. Sarah looked down at her notes, then back up at the Admiral. The moment stretched between them, filled with 15 years of preparation, countless hours of study, and the hopes of every person who had ever been told they didn't belong. Her next words would either establish her credibility or confirm every doubt that had followed her through her naval career. "Admiral Mitchell," she said, her voice now carrying a confidence that surprised even herself. "You're absolutely right that I lack combat experience. But I've spent those years studying every engagement you and officers like you have fought. I've analyzed your victories, learned from your strategies, and identified patterns that even you might not have recognized." The Admiral's eyebrows rose slightly, the first sign of genuine interest he had shown since the presentation began. "Go on," he said, his tone carrying a mixture of curiosity and challenge. Sarah clicked to her next slide, which displayed a detailed analysis of Mitchell's famous victory in the South China Sea 3 years earlier. "Your engagement with the hostile submarine group off the Philippine coast was brilliant tactical execution. But there were 3 critical factors in your success that had nothing to do with traditional naval doctrine." She began highlighting specific moments from the battle, using declassified reports and her own analysis to break down Mitchell's decision-making process. The room grew quieter as officers realized she wasn't offering generic praise, but demonstrating genuine understanding of complex tactical situations. "You adapted your formation mid-engagement, something no training manual recommends," Sarah continued. "You used weather patterns as tactical advantages, and you anticipated enemy responses based on their cultural military traditions rather than standard operational procedures." Admiral Mitchell's expression shifted from skepticism to attention. Other officers began leaning forward, recognizing the accuracy of her analysis. Sarah had done something unexpected. She had studied their actual experiences and found lessons that they themselves might have missed. "The point, Admiral, is that innovation builds on experience. My proposals aren't meant to replace traditional tactics, but to expand them for threats that traditional thinking might not anticipate." The room remained silent as Mitchell considered her words. The challenge had been issued and met, but the real test was just beginning. Sarah had proven she could analyze past engagements, but could she demonstrate practical application of her theories? "Very well, Commander," Mitchell said finally, his voice carrying a new note of respect. "You've done your homework on my battles. But analysis after the fact is different from making decisions under pressure. Are you prepared to put your theories to a real test?" Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This was moving beyond academic debate into something far more significant. "What kind of test, Admiral?" Mitchell stood up, his tall frame commanding attention from everyone in the room. "Fleet exercises begin next week. I'm proposing something unprecedented, a direct challenge. You'll command a small task force using your unconventional tactics against my traditional fleet formation. Real ships, real scenarios, real-time decision-making." The suggestion sent a shock wave through the assembled officers. Fleet exercises typically followed established protocols, with senior commanders leading predetermined scenarios. Mitchell was proposing something that had never been done before, a direct tactical competition between opposing strategies. "Admiral," one of the senior captains spoke up, "such an exercise would require approval from Fleet Command, not to mention significant resource allocation." Mitchell waved off the concern. "Leave the bureaucracy to me, Captain. The question is whether Commander Chun is willing to back up her theories with action." Sarah realized that everything had changed in the span of a few minutes. What began as a routine presentation had become a defining moment not just for her career, but potentially for naval tactical doctrine itself. The Admiral was offering her something unprecedented, the chance to prove her ideas in actual fleet operations. "I accept your challenge, Admiral," she said without hesitation. "When do we begin?" Mitchell's smile was genuine now, the expression of a warrior recognizing a worthy opponent. "Preparation begins immediately. You'll have 1 week to select your task force and refine your strategies. The exercise will be observed by Fleet Command and documented for tactical review." As officers began filing out of the briefing room, Sarah remained at the podium, still processing what had just occurred. She had come to present ideas and had instead accepted a challenge that would test everything she believed about modern naval warfare. The whispers she heard now carried a different tone, not dismissal, but anticipation. Admiral Mitchell approached her as the room emptied. "Commander, you've just volunteered for something that could make or break your career. I hope you understand what you've gotten yourself into." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "With respect, Admiral, I've been preparing for this my entire career. The only question is whether the fleet is ready for what modern warfare actually looks like." The gauntlet had been thrown down and accepted. In 1 week, Theory would meet reality in a test that would determine not just Sarah's future, but potentially the direction of naval tactical doctrine for years to come. The real battle was just beginning. The news of the unprecedented fleet exercise spread through the naval base like wildfire. By evening, every officer from ensign to captain knew about the challenge between Lieutenant Commander Chun and Admiral Mitchell. The mess halls buzzed with speculation, betting pools formed in the barracks, and senior officers found themselves divided into camps supporting traditional versus innovative tactical approaches. Sarah spent the night in her quarters, surrounded by tactical manuals, computer simulations, and detailed fleet rosters. She had 1 week to assemble a task force capable of challenging the most respected admiral in the Pacific Fleet. The weight of the moment pressed down on her like the crushing depth of deep ocean waters. Her first challenge was selecting personnel. Admiral Mitchell would command the traditional fleet elements, destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels operated by experienced crews following established doctrine. Sarah needed officers and sailors who could adapt quickly to unconventional tactics while maintaining the precision necessary for complex naval operations. Lieutenant Jake Rodriguez knocked on her door at 0600 hours sharp. As her operations officer, he had worked closely with Sarah on developing the tactical proposals that had led to this challenge. His background in electronic warfare and cyber operations made him invaluable for the kind of modern naval combat she envisioned. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, entering with a steaming cup of coffee and a folder thick with personnel files, "I've compiled a list of officers who might be suitable for your task force. Most of them have experience with advanced combat systems and unconventional operations." Sarah accepted the coffee gratefully, her eyes already scanning the files. She needed commanders who could think independently while following her overall strategic vision. Traditional naval operations relied on strict hierarchical communication, but her tactics required rapid adaptation and initiative at every level. "Tell me about Commander Williams," she said, pointing to a file near the top of the stack. "Submarine commander, 15 years experience, recently completed advanced training in unmanned underwater vehicle operations," Rodriguez replied. "He's been pushing for integration of autonomous systems into standard sub-operations, but his superiors consider his ideas too experimental." Sarah made a note on the file. Williams sounded like exactly the kind of officer she needed, someone with real experience who wasn't afraid to challenge conventional thinking. The integration of unmanned systems would be crucial to her tactical approach. Over the next 2 days, Sarah interviewed potential task force members. Each meeting revealed the deep divisions within the naval community about the future of maritime warfare. Some officers were excited by the possibility of proving new tactical concepts, while others seemed concerned about being associated with what they viewed as a risky experiment. Commander Patricia Hayes, a destroyer captain with expertise in missile defense systems, was particularly direct during her interview. "Commander Chin, I respect what you're trying to accomplish, but Admiral Mitchell has forgotten more about naval warfare than most of us will ever learn. What makes you think unconventional tactics can overcome that kind of experience?" Sarah leaned forward in her chair, recognizing this as a moment that would define her relationship with potential team members. "Commander Hayes, experience is invaluable, but it can also become a limitation when facing new threats. The enemy won't follow our training manuals or respect our traditions. They'll use whatever advantages they can find. But Admiral Mitchell's record speaks for itself," Hayes countered. "His strategies have proven successful in real combat situations." "Absolutely," Sarah agreed. "And that's exactly why this exercise is so important. We're not trying to prove that traditional tactics are wrong. We're trying to expand the options available to fleet commanders when facing unexpected situations." Hayes considered this for a long moment. "What exactly are you proposing? What would my role be in this task force?" Sarah pulled out her preliminary tactical outline, a document she had refined constantly since accepting Mitchell's challenge. "Your destroyer would serve as a mobile command platform, using advanced data linking to coordinate with unmanned systems and cyber warfare units. Instead of operating as a traditional gun platform, you'd function as the brain of a distributed combat network." The concept was radical by naval standards. Traditional destroyer operations focused on direct engagement and fire support. Sarah was proposing something more like an airborne early warning aircraft, a command and control center that could coordinate multiple combat elements across a wide area. "It's interesting," Hayes admitted reluctantly. "But how do we know these systems will work under combat conditions? Simulations are one thing, but real operations involve variables that no computer can predict. Sarah had been expecting this question from every potential team member. The uncertainty was legitimate. Her tactics had never been tested under real combat conditions. But neither had many of Admiral Mitchell's innovations when he first implemented them during actual battles. "You're absolutely right about the uncertainty," she acknowledged. "But that's true of any new tactical approach." When Admiral Mitchell adapted his formation during the Philippine engagement, he was improvising based on immediate tactical needs. "We're doing the same thing, but with advanced preparation." Over the following days, Sarah's task force began taking shape. Commander Williams agreed to lead the submarine element, bringing 2 attack subs equipped with experimental unmanned underwater vehicles. Commander Hayes accepted command of the destroyer group, though she remained skeptical about the unconventional tactical approach. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Thompson joined as the task force's cyber warfare specialist. His background in naval intelligence and electronic countermeasures made him essential for the kind of information-based combat that Sarah envisioned. Thompson's enthusiasm for the project was infectious. He had been waiting years for the opportunity to demonstrate how cyber capabilities could integrate with traditional naval operations. The most surprising addition to the team came from an unexpected source. Captain Elena Vasquez, a senior officer with extensive experience in joint operations, requested assignment to the task force as an observer and advisor. Her presence added credibility to the project while providing valuable guidance on inter-service coordination. "Commander Chun," Captain Vasquez explained during their first team meeting, "what you're proposing represents the future of naval warfare. Traditional tactics worked well against traditional threats, but modern adversaries won't give us the luxury of fighting yesterday's wars." The team spent countless hours in simulation centers, refining their tactical coordination and communication procedures. Sarah's approach required unprecedented cooperation between different naval specialties: surface ships, submarines, cyber warfare units, and unmanned systems, all needed to function as a coordinated whole. The challenge became apparent immediately. Traditional naval operations relied on clear command hierarchies and established communication protocols. Sarah's tactics required rapid information sharing and distributed decision-making that challenged every assumption about naval command structure. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported during one particularly intense simulation session, "the data linking systems are creating communication bottlenecks. Too much information is flowing too fast for traditional analysis procedures." Sarah studied the simulation results, recognizing a fundamental problem with her approach. The same technology that gave her task force advantages also created new vulnerabilities. If the enemy could disrupt their communication networks, her distributed tactical approach would collapse into chaos. "We need redundant systems," she decided. "Multiple communication methods, backup command structures, and the ability to operate independently when necessary." Commander Williams nodded from across the simulation center. "That's going to require training our crews to make tactical decisions without constant guidance from command. Most sailors aren't prepared for that level of independence." The observation highlighted another challenge Sarah hadn't fully anticipated. Her tactical approach required not just new technology and procedures, but a different mindset among the crews who would implement them. Traditional naval training emphasized following orders and maintaining discipline, essential qualities for naval operations, but potentially limiting when rapid adaptation was required. Captain Vasquez offered a solution based on her experience with special operations units. "We need to cross-train personnel in multiple specialties and give them decision-making authority within defined parameters. It's similar to how special forces teams operate, clear objectives with flexibility in execution methods." The team began implementing intensive training programs that pushed traditional boundaries. Submarine crews learned about surface ship operations, destroyer personnel studied cyber warfare techniques, and everyone received training in unmanned system coordination. The approach was exhausting, but necessary for the kind of integrated operations Sarah envisioned. News of the innovative training methods reached Admiral Mitchell's preparation team, creating additional pressure on Sarah's group. Traditional naval officers viewed some of their methods as unnecessarily complex, while others worried that the experimental approach might compromise basic naval proficiency. "Commander," Captain Vasquez warned during a private conversation, "there's growing concern among senior officers that this exercise might be setting a dangerous precedent. Some people think you're trying to revolutionize naval doctrine based on untested theories." Sarah had been aware of the resistance building within the traditional naval community. Her challenge to Admiral Mitchell had been interpreted by some as an attack on established naval traditions and the experience of senior officers who had dedicated their careers to mastering conventional tactics. "Captain, I understand the concerns," she replied carefully. "But refusing to adapt has destroyed more militaries throughout history than enemy action ever has. We're not trying to replace traditional tactics. We're trying to expand them." The conversation highlighted the broader implications of the upcoming exercise. Success would validate Sarah's approach and potentially influence naval tactical doctrine for years to come. Failure would not only end her career, but also reinforce resistance to innovation within the naval community. As the week of preparation drew to a close, Sarah's task force had evolved into something unprecedented in naval operations. Her crews were trained in multiple specialties, her ships were equipped with experimental communication systems, and her tactical approach challenged fundamental assumptions about naval warfare. The final team meeting before the exercise took place in the same briefing room where Sarah had first presented her ideas to Admiral Mitchell. The assembled officers represented the most diverse and technically proficient task force ever assembled for a naval exercise. "Tomorrow we test everything we've learned," Sarah addressed her team. "Admiral Mitchell commands one of the finest traditional naval forces in the world. His crews are experienced, his tactics are proven, and his leadership is legendary. We're not going out there to prove him wrong. We're going out there to prove that the future of naval warfare can build on that foundation." Commander Williams raised his hand from the back of the room. "Ma'am, what happens if we lose? What happens to our careers, to our crews, to the future of these tactical innovations?" Sarah had asked herself the same question every night since accepting Mitchell's challenge. The risks were enormous, not just for her personally, but for everyone who had joined her in this experimental approach to naval warfare. "Commander, failure is always a possibility when you try something new. But the greater failure would be refusing to try at all. Tomorrow we find out whether the future of naval warfare is ready to begin today." As her officers filed out of the briefing room, Sarah remained behind to review her final tactical plans. In 12 hours, theory would meet reality in a confrontation that would determine not just her future, but potentially the direction of naval tactical doctrine for generations to come. The storm was gathering, and tomorrow would determine whether her innovative approach could weather the tempest of real naval combat. Dawn broke over the Pacific Ocean with deceptive calm, the surface reflecting golden sunlight while concealing the largest naval exercise in recent fleet history. 200 miles northwest of San Diego, the designated combat zone stretched across 15,000 square miles of open water, monitored by observation aircraft and neutral vessels recording every moment of the unprecedented tactical confrontation. Admiral Mitchell's traditional battle group formed an impressive sight on the horizon. 3 destroyers maintained perfect formation around the flagship cruiser USS Monterey, their radar arrays sweeping continuously while helicopter patrols provided aerial reconnaissance. 2 frigates flanked the formation at precise intervals, and a nuclear attack submarine prowled somewhere beneath the waves. The formation represented decades of tactical refinement, every position calculated for maximum defensive capability and offensive potential. Sarah stood on the bridge of the USS Innovation, a recently commissioned destroyer that served as her command vessel. The ship's advanced communication systems hummed quietly, processing data streams from sources scattered across the combat zone. Unlike Mitchell's concentrated formation, her task force was dispersed across 50 square miles, connected by encrypted data links that created a virtual command structure. "Ma'am, all elements report ready for combat operations," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced from the communication station. His voice carried tension despite intensive preparation. The next few hours would determine whether months of innovative training could compete with traditional naval expertise. Sarah studied the tactical display showing Admiral Mitchell's formation approaching from the northeast. His ships maintained textbook positioning, close enough for mutual support, far enough apart to avoid catastrophic damage from single enemy attacks. The formation had proven effective in countless engagements, and Mitchell commanded it with the confidence of long experience. "Signal all units to implement deployment pattern Alpha," Sarah ordered. Her dispersed formation began shifting into an even wider configuration, individual ships taking positions that would seem chaotic to traditional tactical thinking, but created overlapping fields of electronic surveillance and defensive coverage. Commander Williams' submarine element had already disappeared into the deep waters west of the exercise area. His two attack submarines carried experimental unmanned underwater vehicles designed to extend sensor range and create false targeting signatures. Traditional anti-submarine warfare doctrine focused on hunting individual boats, but Sarah's approach treated submarines as mobile command centers coordinating swarms of robotic assets. The first phase of the exercise called for Admiral Mitchell's force to locate and engage Sarah's task force within a 6-hour time limit. Standard naval doctrine emphasized decisive engagement, bringing maximum firepower to bear against enemy forces before they could escape or respond effectively. Mitchell's reputation was built on aggressive tactics that forced enemies to fight at disadvantages of his choosing. Contact bearing 270, range 45 nautical miles, reported the radar operator. Large surface combatant with escort vessels, heading 180 at 25 knots. Admiral Mitchell's force was making their opening move, advancing directly toward the center of the exercise area where they expected to find Sarah's main force. The approach demonstrated classic naval thinking. Seize the initiative through aggressive action and force the enemy to respond to your movements. But Sarah's task force wasn't where traditional tactics suggested it should be. Instead of concentrating for mutual protection, her ships had scattered across the combat zone, each one serving as a node in a distributed sensor network that monitored enemy movements without revealing their own positions. Passive sensors are tracking multiple surface contacts, Commander Thompson reported from the cyber warfare station. Admiral Mitchell's formation is maintaining standard communication protocols and radar sweep patterns. Sarah nodded, studying the intelligence data flowing across her tactical displays. Mitchell's adherence to established procedures gave her task force significant advantages in electronic surveillance, but it also reflected the disciplined approach that made traditional formations so effective in actual combat. All stations, initiate Phase 1 electronic countermeasures, she ordered. Selective jamming of long-range communications only. Make them work harder for information without triggering full electronic warfare protocols. The order represented a calculated risk. Electronic warfare was governed by strict rules of engagement during exercises, but Sarah's subtle approach tested the boundaries without crossing them. Her goal was to degrade Mitchell's information gathering without providing obvious targets for counterattack. Admiral Mitchell's response was immediate and professional. His formation adjusted course slightly, spreading sensors across wider frequencies while maintaining formation integrity. The maneuver demonstrated exactly why he was considered one of the fleet's premier tactical commanders. He adapted to changing conditions without abandoning proven strategies. "Ma'am, enemy formation is adjusting search patterns," Rodriguez reported. "They're expanding their sensor coverage and increasing communication security protocols." Sarah watched the tactical display update as Mitchell's ships began implementing more sophisticated search procedures. Traditional naval training emphasized systematic approaches to unknown situations, establish security, gather information, then act decisively based on analysis. Mitchell was following the playbook perfectly. "Signal submarine element to begin Phase 2 operations," Sarah ordered. "Passive tracking only. Maintain stealth protocols." Deep beneath the surface, Commander Williams received the order while monitoring Mitchell's submarine through passive sonar arrays. The traditional approach to submarine warfare emphasized concealment and surprise attacks, but Sarah's tactics treated submarines as intelligence-gathering platforms that could coordinate surface operations. Williams' unmanned underwater vehicles had been deployed in a wide search pattern, their sensors creating an underwater surveillance network that tracked enemy submarine movements without revealing their own positions. The technology was experimental, but early results exceeded expectations. "Control, this is Deepwater 6, Williams transmitted through encrypted channels. Enemy submarine contact bearing 090, range 12,000 yards, depth 280 feet. Single attack boat maintaining standard patrol pattern." The intelligence gave Sarah's task force a critical advantage. Traditional surface combatants relied on their submarine escorts for underwater protection, but if she could track enemy submarines without being detected herself, the protective screen became a predictable element rather than an unknown threat. Admiral Mitchell's formation continued its methodical advance, sweeping assigned search sectors with the thoroughness that characterized professional naval operations. His radar coverage created overlapping detection zones, while helicopter patrols extended surveillance beyond the horizon. The approach was textbook perfect, no gaps, no weaknesses, no opportunities for enemy exploitation. But Sarah's distributed formation wasn't trying to hide from Mitchell's search efforts. Instead, Her ships were positioned to observe his tactics while avoiding direct engagement. Each vessel collected intelligence about enemy capabilities and procedures, building a comprehensive picture of traditional naval operations that could be used to identify potential vulnerabilities. Ma'am, we're receiving detailed intelligence on enemy radar characteristics and communication protocols, Thompson reported. Their security procedures are excellent, but they're predictable. Sarah studied the intelligence summaries flowing across her displays. Mitchell's force operated with machine-like precision. Every procedure followed exactly as training manuals prescribed. The consistency was a source of strength in traditional combat, but it also created patterns that could be anticipated and exploited. All units, prepare for Phase 3 engagement protocols, she ordered. Maintain maximum dispersion and await targeting coordinates. The moment had arrived to test whether innovative tactics could challenge traditional naval supremacy. Sarah's distributed formation began subtle movements that would bring selected enemy units within range of coordinated attacks from multiple directions simultaneously. Admiral Mitchell's tactical display suddenly showed new contacts appearing across his formation's flanks. The contacts appeared briefly on radar screens before disappearing, creating confusion about actual enemy positions and strength. Sarah's ships were using electronic countermeasures and terrain masking to create false signatures while concealing their actual locations. Admiral, we're detecting multiple surface contacts at various bearings, reported Mitchell's operations officer. Contacts appear intermittent, possibly small craft or false signatures. Mitchell studied his tactical display with the calm focus that had made him legendary throughout the fleet. The new contacts didn't conform to standard naval formation patterns, suggesting either equipment malfunction or enemy tactics he hadn't encountered before. Maintain formation integrity and continue systematic search, he ordered. Deploy helicopter assets to investigate anomalous contacts. Assume hostile intent, but follow rules of engagement. The decision reflected Mitchell's experience and professional caution. When facing unknown situations, traditional naval doctrine emphasized security and systematic response rather than aggressive action based on incomplete information. The approach had proven successful in countless real-world engagements. But Sarah's tactics were specifically designed to exploit the methodical nature of traditional naval responses. While Mitchell's formation investigated false contacts and maintained security protocols, her distributed task force was positioning for coordinated attacks that would challenge fundamental assumptions about naval combat. Ma'am, enemy helicopters are investigating our decoy positions, Rodriguez reported. Admiral Mitchell is deploying aerial reconnaissance assets according to standard procedures. Sarah watched the tactical display as Mitchell's helicopters began investigating the false contacts her electronic warfare systems had created. The helicopters would eventually determine that the signatures were deceptive, but the investigation would take time and resources that could be used more effectively elsewhere. Signal all units to implement final attack positioning, she ordered. Coordinate targeting solutions for simultaneous engagement from multiple vectors. The order initiated the most complex phase of Sarah's tactical plan. Her distributed ships would launch coordinated attacks against Mitchell's formation from multiple directions simultaneously, using unmanned systems and electronic warfare to create confusion while delivering precise strikes against selected targets. Traditional naval formations were designed to concentrate defensive firepower against attacks from predictable directions. Sarah's approach challenged this assumption by creating attack vectors that forced enemy ships to divide their defensive attention across multiple threats simultaneously. Admiral Mitchell's formation detected the coordinated movement moments before Sarah's attack began. Radar operators reported multiple inbound contacts approaching from different directions, moving too fast and coordinating too precisely to be coincidental. All stations, this is Admiral Mitchell, he announced over tactical communications. We are facing coordinated attack from multiple vectors. Implement defensive pattern delta and prepare for simultaneous engagement. The announcement marked the beginning of the most intense phase of the exercise. Traditional naval tactics would face their greatest test against innovative approaches that challenged every assumption about modern naval warfare. The outcome would determine not just the winner of a single exercise, but potentially the future direction of naval tactical doctrine. Sarah gripped the bridge railing as her tactical plan moved into its final phase. Months of preparation and innovation would be tested in the next few minutes of simulated combat. The battle that would define her career, and possibly the future of naval warfare, had finally begun, the first wave of Sarah's coordinated attack struck Admiral Mitchell's formation with unprecedented precision. Simulated missile strikes came from 3 different directions simultaneously, forcing his defensive systems to engage multiple threats while maintaining formation integrity. The attack demonstrated the power of distributed tactical coordination, but Mitchell's response revealed why he was considered one of the fleet's premier commanders. Defensive missiles engaging multiple inbound targets, reported Mitchell's tactical officer. Successful intercepts on 70% of incoming ordnance. Formation maintaining integrity under coordinated attack. Admiral Mitchell studied his tactical displays with the calm intensity that had carried him through real combat situations. Sarah's attack was innovative and well-coordinated, but traditional naval formations had evolved specifically to handle multi-vector threats. His ships maintained overlapping defensive coverage while returning coordinated fire against detected enemy positions. All units, implement counter-battery fire against confirmed target locations, Mitchell ordered. Maintain defensive posture but transition to aggressive pursuit of engaged enemy units. The response showcased traditional naval tactics at their finest. Instead of simply defending against Sarah's attacks, Mitchell's formation began hunting her distributed ships with systematic thoroughness. His crews had decades of experience in coordinated combat operations, and their professionalism showed in every precise maneuver. Sarah watched her tactical display as Admiral Mitchell's formation began its counterattack. Several of her forward units came under intense simulated fire, forcing them to implement evasive maneuvers that disrupted her coordinated tactical plan. The Admiral was proving that experience and traditional tactics remained formidable advantages even against innovative approaches. "Ma'am, USS Defiant reports taking heavy simulated damage," Rodriguez announced. "They're implementing emergency protocols and withdrawing from forward positions." The loss of one of her primary surface combatants was a serious blow to Sarah's tactical plan. Her distributed formation depended on coordinated action from all elements, and losing ships to combat damage reduced her ability to maintain pressure against Mitchell's traditional formation. "Signal Defiant to maintain communication links while withdrawing," Sarah ordered. "Redirect submarine element to provide tactical intelligence on enemy pursuit patterns." Commander Williams received the new orders while tracking Admiral Mitchell's submarine through passive sonar arrays. The traditional submarine had maintained standard patrol patterns throughout the engagement, providing underwater security for Mitchell's surface formation while remaining undetected by conventional sensors. But Williams' unmanned underwater vehicles had been monitoring the enemy submarine continuously, building detailed profiles of its operational characteristics and tactical procedures. The intelligence gave Sarah's task force unprecedented awareness of underwater threats that traditionally remained invisible until actual combat. "Control, this is Deepwater 6, Williams transmitted. Enemy submarine is adjusting position to support surface pursuit operations. Recommend implementing Phase 4 countermeasures against underwater escort." The recommendation represented one of Sarah's most innovative tactical concepts. Instead of treating enemy submarines as hidden threats to be avoided, her approach used unmanned systems to track and potentially neutralize underwater assets before they could support surface operations. "Approved, Deepwater 6, Sarah replied. "Implement underwater countermeasures while maintaining stealth protocols." Williams began deploying his unmanned underwater vehicles in coordinated patterns designed to confuse and distract the enemy submarine. The robotic systems created false acoustic signatures while gathering detailed intelligence about enemy capabilities and procedures. The approach was experimental, but early results suggested significant tactical advantages. Meanwhile, Admiral Mitchell's surface formation continued its systematic pursuit of Sarah's distributed task force. His ships moved with practiced coordination, using overlapping sensor coverage to track enemy units while maintaining mutual defensive support. The formation demonstrated the enduring effectiveness of traditional naval tactics when executed by experienced crews. "Admiral, we're tracking multiple enemy units attempting evasive maneuvers," reported Mitchell's operations officer. "Recommend coordinated pursuit to prevent escape and regroup." Mitchell studied the tactical situation carefully. Sarah's ships were scattering under pressure, exactly as traditional doctrine predicted they would when faced with concentrated firepower from an organized formation. The moment had arrived to demonstrate the decisive advantage of conventional naval tactics. "All units, implement pursuit pattern Charlie," he ordered. "Maintain formation discipline while engaging scattered enemy forces. prevent regrouping, and force individual engagements. The order initiated one of the most fundamental principles of traditional naval warfare: concentrate your forces against scattered enemies to achieve local superiority in each engagement. Mitchell's formation began hunting Sarah's ships systematically, using superior coordination to defeat distributed opponents. But Sarah's tactical plan had anticipated exactly this response. While Admiral Mitchell's ships pursued her scattered surface units, her submarine element was implementing underwater operations designed to neutralize his submarine escort and create vulnerabilities in his formation's defensive coverage. Ma'am, submarine element reports successful engagement of enemy underwater assets, Thompson announced from the cyber warfare station. Enemy submarine appears to be experiencing navigation difficulties. Williams had used his unmanned vehicles to create acoustic interference patterns that disrupted the enemy submarine's sonar systems without causing permanent damage. The technique was subtle enough to avoid detection while degrading the submarine's ability to provide effective support for Mitchell's surface operations. Admiral Mitchell's tactical display suddenly showed gaps in his underwater coverage as his submarine escort reported technical difficulties with sonar equipment. The problems appeared to be system malfunctions rather than enemy action, but the timing was suspicious given the intensity of the ongoing engagement. Engineering reports on submarine sonar difficulties, his communications officer announced. They're implementing backup systems and diagnostic procedures. Mitchell recognized that losing underwater reconnaissance was a serious tactical disadvantage, but traditional naval doctrine provided procedures for operating without submarine support. His formation adjusted defensive patterns to compensate for reduced underwater awareness while continuing pursuit operations against Sarah's scattered forces. Sarah watched her tactical display as Admiral Mitchell's formation adapted to the loss of submarine support. His ships maintained professional coordination despite the setback, demonstrating the flexibility that made traditional tactics so effective across different combat situations. Signal all units to implement regrouping pattern Delta, she ordered. Coordinate convergence on pre-planned positions for Phase 5 operations. The order initiated the most critical phase of Sarah's tactical plan. Her scattered ships began moving toward predetermined positions that would allow coordinated attacks against Mitchell's pursuing formation. The maneuver required precise timing and coordination, but success would demonstrate the ultimate potential of distributed naval tactics. Admiral Mitchell detected the enemy regrouping almost immediately. His experienced tactical staff recognized the movement patterns as preparation for renewed coordinated attacks, exactly the kind of threat that traditional formations were designed to counter. Enemy units appear to be regrouping for coordinated attack, reported his tactical officer. Recommend implementing defensive pattern alpha and preparing for multi-vector engagement. Mitchell studied the developing tactical situation with growing respect for Sarah's capabilities. Her initial attacks had been well coordinated, her response to pressure had been professional, and now she was attempting to regroup under fire. Exactly what an experienced naval commander should do in similar circumstances. All units maintain pursuit pressure while preparing defensive measures, he ordered. Do not allow enemy forces to complete regrouping operations. The decision represented classic naval tactical thinking. Maintain pressure on scattered enemies to prevent effective coordination. Mitchell's ships continued their systematic pursuit while preparing for defensive action against anticipated renewed attacks. But Sarah's regrouping maneuver was creating opportunities that traditional tactical thinking didn't anticipate. Her distributed ships were converging on positions that would allow coordinated strikes against Admiral Mitchell's formation from directions that defensive doctrine considered unlikely or impossible. Ma'am, all units report ready for final engagement phase, Rodriguez announced. Targeting solutions locked for coordinated strike against enemy formation. Sarah studied her tactical display one final time before giving the order that would determine the outcome of the entire exercise. Admiral Mitchell's formation remained concentrated and powerful, but her distributed approach had created targeting opportunities that traditional defensive thinking hadn't anticipated. All units, implement final attack pattern, she ordered. Execute coordinated strike against designated targets. The final phase of Sarah's tactical plan began with coordinated attacks from positions that Admiral Mitchell's formation couldn't effectively defend simultaneously. Her ships struck from multiple directions while her submarine element disrupted underwater defenses, and electronic warfare systems created confusion in enemy targeting. Admiral Mitchell's formation responded with professional precision, implementing defensive measures while attempting to concentrate firepower against the most threatening enemy units. His crews performed exactly as their training prescribed, but they were facing tactical challenges that traditional doctrine hadn't anticipated. The simulated battle reached its climax as innovative tactics met traditional naval expertise in direct confrontation. The outcome would determine not just the winner of a single exercise, but potentially influence naval tactical doctrine for generations to come. Both formations fought with skill and determination, but the tide of battle was shifting in ways that would surprise observers and participants alike. The most intensive phase of the engagement was about to reveal whether the future of naval warfare would build on traditional foundations or require completely new approaches to tactical thinking. The final moments of the exercise unfolded with breathtaking intensity as Sarah's coordinated attack reached its crescendo. Her distributed task force struck Admiral Mitchell's formation from 7 different vectors simultaneously, creating tactical challenges that traditional defensive doctrine had never anticipated. The attacking ships moved with precision that demonstrated months of intensive training, while unmanned systems provided real-time intelligence coordination. Admiral Mitchell's formation responded with the professional excellence that had made him legendary throughout the fleet. His ships implemented defensive measures with machine-like precision, engaging incoming threats while maintaining formation integrity under unprecedented pressure. But, for the first time in his distinguished career, traditional tactics were proving insufficient against innovative approaches. "Admiral, we're taking simulated hits from multiple directions," reported his tactical officer, strain evident in his voice despite professional training. "Defensive systems are engaging targets faster than targeting computers can process threat priorities." Mitchell studied his tactical displays as damage reports flowed in from across his formation. Sarah's attacks were precisely coordinated to overwhelm traditional defensive responses, too many threats from too many directions for conventional countermeasures to handle effectively. The moment he had dreaded and secretly anticipated was finally arriving. All units maintain defensive formation and implement emergency damage control, he ordered, his voice carrying the calm authority that had sustained him through real combat situations. "Prepare for tactical withdrawal to secondary positions." The order represented something unprecedented in Admiral Mitchell's career, acknowledgement that traditional tactics were facing challenges they couldn't overcome through conventional responses. His formation began implementing emergency procedures while continuing to engage Sarah's attacking forces. Sarah watched her tactical display as simulated weapon strikes achieved their intended effects. Admiral Mitchell's flagship was showing significant combat damage. 2 of his escort destroyers were implementing emergency protocols, and his formation's defensive coordination was beginning to break down under sustained pressure from multiple directions. "Ma'am, enemy formation is implementing tactical withdrawal," Rodriguez reported with barely contained excitement. "All units report successful target engagement with minimal damage to our forces." The moment represented vindication for months of innovative thinking and challenging traditional assumptions about naval warfare. Sarah's distributed tactical approach had successfully challenged one of the fleet's most respected traditional formations, but victory brought responsibilities as significant as the achievement itself. "All units, cease offensive operations and implement monitoring positions," she ordered. "Maintain tactical awareness, but do not pursue withdrawing enemy forces." The order reflected both tactical wisdom and professional respect for Admiral Mitchell's capabilities. Traditional naval doctrine emphasized pursuit of defeated enemies, but Sarah recognized that Mitchell's withdrawal was strategic rather than desperate. He was preserving his formation's capability while acknowledging the effectiveness of her innovative tactics. Admiral Mitchell's tactical withdrawal was executed with the same professional precision that had characterized his entire approach to the exercise. His ships maintained coordination while moving to positions that reduced their vulnerability to continued attacks from Sarah's distributed formation. The maneuver demonstrated that traditional tactical thinking retains significant advantages even when facing innovative approaches. "Signal exercise termination to all units," Mitchell ordered as his formation reached secure positions. "Implement post-engagement protocols and prepare for tactical analysis." The announcement marked the official end of the most significant naval exercise in recent fleet history. Across the combat zone, ships from both formations began implementing safety procedures while observation aircraft and neutral vessels documented final positions and damage assessments. Sarah remained on the bridge of the USS Innovation as her task force implemented post-engagement procedures. The tactical display showed her distributed ships scattered across 50 square miles of ocean, their coordinated actions having achieved something that many observers had considered impossible: successful challenge to traditional naval supremacy. "Ma'am, Admiral Mitchell is requesting direct communication," Rodriguez announced from the communication station. Sarah accepted the connection with mixture of anticipation and respect. Admiral Mitchell had proven himself a formidable opponent whose professionalism and tactical skill had made victory far from certain. His acknowledgement of the exercise outcome would carry significant weight within the naval community. "Commander Chun," Mitchell's voice came through the bridge speakers with warmth that surprised everyone listening. "That was the most innovative tactical demonstration I've witnessed in 30 years of naval service. Your coordination and strategic thinking exceeded every expectation." The acknowledgement sent ripples of pride through Sarah's bridge crew. Admiral Mitchell's professional reputation made his praise particularly meaningful, especially given the competitive nature of the exercise they had just completed. "Admiral, your formation's response was everything we expected from the fleet's premier traditional commander," Sarah replied. "Your crews performed magnificently under circumstances that no training manual could have prepared them for." Mitchell's laughter carried genuine appreciation for the tactical challenges they had created for each other. "Commander, you've proven something that many of us suspected but couldn't demonstrate. Naval warfare is evolving faster than traditional doctrine can adapt. Your tactics represent the future we need to embrace." The conversation continued as both formations began their return to port. Admiral Mitchell's acknowledgement of Sarah's tactical innovations had implications far beyond a single exercise victory. His endorsement would influence naval doctrine development and potentially reshape training programs throughout the fleet. News of the exercise outcome spread through the fleet with unprecedented speed. Officers who had dismissed Sarah's theories as academic speculation suddenly found themselves studying her tactical approaches with serious interest. The victory over Admiral Mitchell had transformed innovative concepts into proven operational capabilities. Captain Vasquez approached Sarah as the USS Innovation entered San Diego Harbor. Her expression carried satisfaction, mixed with recognition of the broader implications of their success. The exercise victory was just the beginning of changes that would affect naval operations for years to come. "Commander, you've accomplished something remarkable," Vasquez said. "But victory brings new responsibilities. The entire naval community will be studying your tactics and expecting practical implementation of innovative concepts." Sarah understood the challenge that success had created. Proving that innovative tactics could work was different from developing them into standard operational procedures that could be taught and implemented across the entire fleet. The real test of her innovations would come in their practical application to everyday naval operations. The post-exercise analysis sessions began immediately upon return to port. Senior officers from throughout the Pacific Fleet gathered to review tactical recordings and discuss implications for naval doctrine development. The sessions represented unprecedented openness to tactical innovation within traditionally conservative military institutions. Admiral Mitchell personally led many of the analysis sessions, his endorsement of Sarah's tactics carrying weight that overcame resistance from officers who remained skeptical about departing from traditional approaches. His professional reputation and combat experience made his support particularly influential. The exercise demonstrated that innovative tactics can successfully challenge traditional approaches when properly developed and executed, Mitchell told assembled officers during one analysis session. Commander Chin's success wasn't luck or accident. It was the result of thorough preparation and creative tactical thinking. The analysis revealed specific aspects of Sarah's approach that had proven most effective against traditional formations. Her use of distributed coordination, unmanned system integration, and electronic warfare capabilities had created tactical advantages that conventional defensive thinking couldn't anticipate or counter effectively. But the sessions also identified areas where traditional tactics retained significant advantages. Admiral Mitchell's formation had maintained discipline and coordination under pressure, demonstrated adaptability when facing unexpected situations, and preserved combat effectiveness even while implementing tactical withdrawals. The future of naval warfare isn't about replacing traditional tactics with innovative approaches, Sarah explained during one presentation to senior officers. It's about integrating proven methods with new capabilities to create more effective responses to evolving threats. Her perspective reflected growing understanding within the naval community that innovation should build upon traditional foundations rather than replacing them entirely. The most effective tactical approaches would combine the reliability of established procedures with the adaptability of new thinking. The exercise victory led to immediate changes in naval training programs and tactical doctrine development. Sarah found herself appointed to lead a new Innovation Development Center tasked with integrating experimental tactics into standard naval operations. The position represented recognition of her achievements while providing opportunities to influence fleet-wide tactical evolution. Admiral Mitchell became an unexpected ally in promoting tactical innovation throughout the naval community. His endorsement of new approaches carried weight that Sarah's achievements alone couldn't provide, especially among traditional officers who remained skeptical about departing from proven methods. Commander Chun has demonstrated that the future of naval warfare requires both innovation and tradition, Mitchell told a gathering of senior fleet commanders. Her success proves that creative thinking can enhance rather than replace the tactical foundations we've developed over decades of experience. The exercise that began as a challenge between competing tactical philosophies had evolved into a catalyst for naval doctrine evolution. Traditional and innovative approaches were being integrated into more comprehensive tactical frameworks that prepared the fleet for emerging threats while maintaining proven capabilities. Sarah stood on the deck of the USS Innovation 6 months after the historic exercise, watching new classes of officers implement training programs that incorporated both traditional and innovative tactical approaches. The victory over Admiral Mitchell had proven that naval warfare was ready for evolution, but the real success lay in creating sustainable improvements to fleet capabilities. The challenge that began with mockery from skeptical observers had transformed into validation of innovative thinking and demonstration that the future of naval warfare would build upon the best of both traditional experience and creative adaptation. The fleet was stronger because it had embraced change while honoring the tactical foundations that had served it well for generations. Admiral Mitchell approached as Sarah watched the training exercises, his presence representing the bridge between traditional expertise and innovative thinking that had made their collaboration so successful. "Commander, you've accomplished something that extends far beyond winning a single exercise," he said. "You've proven that the naval community can evolve and adapt while maintaining the professional excellence that has always been our greatest strength." Sarah nodded, understanding that the real victory wasn't tactical supremacy but the demonstration that innovation and tradition could work together to create more effective naval capabilities. The exercise had ended, but the evolution of naval warfare was just beginning.